Finish up the show by going around Europe, and we're going to finish with a story that brings us back to Liverpool, but we'll start with Douglas Luiz, who apparently, Dave, has not one, not two, not three, but four different Premier League clubs interested in him. One time, Liverpool were reported to be amongst those a couple of years ago. Not anymore, it seems. Who are these four clubs that are interested in Douglas Luiz?
Yeah, there does seem to be a great multitude. Spurs have been linked at one point. Forest is on the screen. They seem to be the strongest, really keen to get the player back as well. You never know genuinely, how much is in this, but he's not wanted at Juventus. He doesn't want to stay there at all. He's clearly got Premier League experience, was at City, wasn't he? Did so well at Villa. Arsenal tried to get him for big money at one stage as well. It just went disastrously wrong a little bit, didn't he, when he left Villa and went to Juventus. Everton, even one of the clubs as well, which you're right, you say he's sleeping on them. If they got Diblin, Douglas Luiz, and although, all the other players we mentioned through the door, it would be quite a unit, wouldn't it, at the same time? So we'll have to see. I think the big thing everyone's expecting is it might be some sort of loan deal with an option or a wage thing Juventus paying. What we'll have to see. But everyone is expecting Douglas Luiz to head back to the Premier League at some point.
Yeah, a much admired footballer, it has to be said. Dortmund are up next for us, and they are looking at the Premier League with big googly eyes on them, thinking they can do some business. What are the stories here around Dortmund?
They always raid the Premier League, don't they, for almost a bargain basement or damaged bird type signings, don't they? I think they can, get value of. And probably no surprise for many. He's part of Manchester United's bomb squad, but Jadon Sancho is still being looked at by Borussia Dortmund, who are obviously waiting till the end of the summer to absolutely do over United and offer like 10 grand a week plus a Karamak and a Twix in installments type of thing, aren't they? So they could just get that absolute bargain. We know how well Sancho does in the Bundesliga as well. As is on the screen, Fabio Silva, the Wolves boy, he's moved around a lot, but he's a target for them at the same time. Buonate, I think it's pronounced, the Brighton boy, the Argentinian, the winger, he's being linked with Dortmund at the same time. And even for Chelsea, Kenny Chukwuemeka, he's being looked at for a possible permanent move there as well after his loan. So they're quite savvy operators, Dortmund, in that regard, aren't they? They'll always look at where a bargain, shall we say, can be picked up from Premier League signings that didn't work out or clubs that are badly run. So it would be no surprise if a few of them ended up there.
Love that broken bird analogy. I just love the idea of Dortmund going, I can fix him. I can fix him. Right, let's get to our second last story. We mentioned Lookman on the last show. We also mentioned Chiesa, and it's interesting to bring it up now, like as we try to steer the ship back towards Liverpool for the end of the show. And Chiesa, last night had a bit of time on the pitch. It looked to me as if he was included in that second lineup, not necessarily for his own edification, but because maybe there's a scenario where he could be kept around as a senior type player who can come in and do bits. There's no doubting his talent. There is doubting the manager's fondness for using him. So that's going to be interesting. What have you heard in relation to how nailed on Chiesa is for away? Lynch earlier on didn't seem convinced. He seemed to think it was likely to happen, but didn't seem to be convinced about any particular destination. So talk to us about Lookman, Chiesa, and if there's any kind of interplay there between those two scenarios.
Yeah, with Lookman, clearly wants to go to Inter Milan. They made a bid. Lookman and his agent think it's a more than suitable bid, but Atalanta have turned it down, been quite public with that. So Lookman hands in a transfer request, and he's now just a no-show at trading, which is good. We've got another no-show in the mix after Victor Gyökeres went to Arsenal. So a bit of personal drama that way. As it says, many just expected Inter to make that improved bid, but Atalanta saying he can only sign for a top club outside of Italy. They're not prepared to sell him to an Italian club. So that all just gets messy. And the reason that gets messy is Federico Chiesa, for as many Italian journalists have mentioned, was expected to be the likely replacement that, Atalanta had sought there. But, I mean, this just looks messy now, doesn't it? As though it may never happen. And also, we know Chiesa's been available and his agent's been trying to sort that move, as we've mentioned, throughout the summer. The wages are the big issue, aren't they? Italian clubs are just not paying the wages that Federico Chiesa's on. So talk of loans with options will Liverpool subsidise, which Liverpool aren't keen to do, of course, thinking, they're still a player, as you mentioned there, at the same time. So it's just all a little bit messy, unfortunately, for Chiesa, who wants to go back to Italy, it's important to say, wants to play regularly there as well, because it's World Cup year. And Gattuso's been honest about it publicly, hasn't it? He needs to be playing if he wants to have that chance to be in the squad. So it's all got to happen. And yeah, from speaking to a few, as you mentioned, last night, people shouldn't really get almost a false impression of it. He was there more as a squad filler, unfortunately, because Hugo Ekitike was never going to play the 90 minutes at the same time. So, and I know people putting in the chat, he could be our fifth senior forward and all those types of things. No, it's just not. I'm not saying impossible, but that is not how Arne Slot sees it. That is not what we're hearing at all. That, we've talked about Rio and Gamora and his promotion. Who else Liverpool are looking at. I think it just needs to be sorted. As much as his tune is an absolute banger, I think it's going this summer.
Yeah, it seems to be the direction of travel. I am surprised at it. I'll tell you the main reason, Dave, is that I don't see us recouping any more than we spent. And I certainly don't see us recouping the wages that we spent for a year and the wages that, or the money that we spent on the transfer fee, if that's where people are looking to get a clear kind of, it cost us nothing type of situation. I can see where people are saying, like JP are saying, that maybe he might hang around as a senior forward. It seems to be a sort of semi-logical option, but if he's not in the manager's thoughts, then he's not in the manager's thoughts. And that's sadly, like with Harvey Elliott, very much where the reality seems to lie. So, well, as far as we could see so far. Our last story, Dave, and this is the one that really brings us back full circle properly to Liverpool. We've already touched on the club via Chiesa there in the last story, but this last story is about Al Hilal, who basically said, I'll see your paltry offer, AC Milan, and I'll back up this big truck full of gold on top of it. It's remarkable, the discrepancy between what is being reported to be on the table for Darwin Nunez at Al Hilal and what he would have been getting at a European club, AC Milan or Napoli or any of the other places that were supposed to be possibly slightly interested in him. That will basically be a real factor in this. My thing, and this, has always been that I could see this going right down to the last day of the season, because I can see Darwin Nunez. He's a good lad. He's a good footballer. It's not worked out at Liverpool. He therefore has no cachet in the Premier League, so he has fewer options than he should have. And I could see him, though, wanting to hang on for a European club and perhaps Champions League football, because I can see a fella at that age, he's a young man, from pride reasons wanting to do that and not wanting to go to what could be seen as a kind of retirement home league, a secondary status league, whatever. But there is the lure of the money. There is the idea that maybe you go and you do a season or two and then you come out of it rehabilitated, your reputation enhanced, and you go to a European club then. And it would be easy to sell someone on that, Dave. Yeah. Where do you think things stand on the reality, the likelihood, the over-under on Nunez actually taking this Al Hilal offer, which we believe, don't we, is very real, even though it hasn't tabled yet? The interest is very real.
I actually think that the Napoli multiple failed approaches and that whole drama actually helps the chance of this, because Darwin, for whatever we say about him, just wants to be loved, doesn't he? just wants to be, loved, have that arm around his shoulder. He's that type of player. There's nothing wrong with saying that. He will be hit and miss. He is a bit erratic. He's not going to get that from Arne Slot. We know his time at Liverpool's done. Darwin knows his time at Liverpool's done. I think a lot of people spotted this last night, wasn't it? There was applause from him, tapping the badge, all those types of things. Many thought it felt like a farewell. Now, as you mentioned, the two clubs being linked, Al Hilal, who we've had multiple reports from, people with the Saudi side saying, yeah, he's absolutely the one Simone Inzaghi wants and instructed them, as many have reported, to get this deal done. And they are speaking to Liverpool. As David Ornstein Romano, everyone's commented on. There's zero doubts about that. And as it says, negotiations continuing, which is probably, by the way, how many trucks of money are arriving on Merseyside to your house to, transport your goods and that type of thing? No doubt. Now, people will talk about AC Milan and all that, but here's the big thing that's coming from the Italian side. AC Milan are not the affluent club they once were by any means. They're actually set to sign a midfielder, and I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong here. I think it's Jashiri, it's pronounced, the Swiss international. So that's pretty much their budget gone. They're looking for a loan, Trev, probably with, a forced obligation or maybe an option and that type of thing. But here's the biggest thing that's also coming into the mix. The wages they're offering are apparently not even half of what Al Hilal have stumped up. So I kind of just get the impression it will be, if all things being equal, zero doubt Darwin would want to go to AC Milan. Zero doubt about that. But when they're not going to meet Liverpool's price tag, when they're not going to do the wages, after the Napoli failed scenario as well, I just think this feels like the move. Bizarrely, if anything now, almost back to square one, the only thing that might hold it up is the whole Isak drama, isn't it? And everything involved in that chain, that Liverpool may just be reluctant to actually pull the trigger on this fully until that one is completely sorted. That's possible. And like you said, it wouldn't surprise me, even though it is not what we want at all, if all these things just roll into later parts of the window, which things still get done, but it's probably not ideal on what Arne Slot and Richard Hughes wanted, is it?
No, it's not. It is absolutely not. And I think it's quite frustrating because it will have made what was such an impressive and neat window, if it ends up in a messy saga between Darwin, Willy Won't-he, Isak, Willy Won't-he. I think that is, it will be unfortunate. And imagine a world, and this world does exist. I'm not sure what the percentage amount is, Dave, but it exists, in which we get frustrated in our moves for Isak. And like you said, there is a reality that is posed to the club, which is, well, he doesn't want to go, whether they're offering a boatload of money or not. I guess we keep him. And that is, like I said, that's not really a future that anyone wants to envisage, because I think most of us have kind of mentally severed ourselves from Darwin Nunez at this stage, even his biggest fans. So it's on the table, I think, is what I'm saying. It's an interesting one. Many go.
I love a line when we get it texted and different things. We've had stuff before with Tyler Morton's departure to Lyon. And based on last night, Arne Slot and his staff have spoken to Train Ione to say, you are staying, and essentially you are the next cover midfielder in that double pivot. So, you've naturally got Mackers, Bosley, Gravenberch, Curtis Jones, that Train Ione is there to get minutes. And also, that's been made clear to Wataru Endo at the same time as well. So I don't know if that will affect his decision. He seems... I did that interview, didn't he, the other week, where he's like, I'm happy to cover any position and play any position, which great attitude, happy to be here. But I just wonder, with it being made clear that Train Ione is more likely to start in midfield ahead of him, what happens there?
Ooh, okay. Can you give us anything around where you're getting that info from, or that latest line from?
You know them. That's probably the best thing I can say. People will know them as well. People will know them from, various things. That's the best way I can say it.
Well, that's a very, very interesting way for us to end. And I'd like to thank again the thousands of you that are watching. It's always very heartening for myself and Dave. We had a little bet amongst ourselves as to whether you guys would show up tonight, thinking you might be transfer fatigued. But no, here you are in your big numbers again. We appreciate you very much. Thanks to everyone who got involved in the chats. And thanks most especially to Dave, who compiles all this information so we can do the show by speaking to all those people that he speaks to on a regular basis. If you saw our WhatsApp between me and him, you would understand the absolute mental nature of the stuff that comes in and the rate at which it comes in. So thanks to everyone for being part of it. Thanks to Dave for gathering the info, and we'll see you again soon.